guys, welcome back to Football Watch 90. Never mind the guy in the background. There wasn't good audio, so I'm just gonna do voiceover over most of the video. However, I am gonna be talking about my experiences with this Nike Mercurial Superfly 10. I got them in the high color version. I usually prefer the aesthetic look of the Superflies than the regular Mercurial Vapors. However, there's nothing wrong with getting one over the other, so it's just a preference. So this is my initial first impression of receiving the Superflies. I ordered them from Nike.com and I got them a long time ago. I just failed to really do any editing and recording and whatnot of the Superflies. However, just quickly going over, this is the box that it comes in. It kind of gives a homage or just kind of a tribute to the beginnings of Nike, the roots of how Nike started, and you see that in the swoosh. Where they include the swoosh, looks like it's made out of dots, even though it's not really made out of dots. But you know, this was sort of the idea that the guys at Nike in the beginning had to like basically put dots, create the logo on the running shoes. That way they didn't have to put any extra material and reduce the weight of the shoe. So it kind of is fitting for the Mercurial Superfly, since this is supposed to be a speed boot. Usually this is the kind of shoe that players and people who make the shoes want them to be really light. The colorway that was released for the Mercurials was this white kind of pearl-esque color with some blue and orange, which I personally think looks pretty badass. The only thing that there's one thing that I really don't like about this new direction that Nike is taking with the Mercurials, and I'll have to talk about that later. But then you also got this bag and a lot of little details that we're gonna see in the shoe. Honestly, the finish in this sole plate looks pretty cool. It's like a chrome, but it just looks really beautiful overall. The shoe really stands out a lot. When you see it in person, it really does kind of give you this wow factor and gives a good impression. Also, now that we are introducing the grip knit in the Mercurials, I think that's pretty safe to say that Nike pretty much has paved the way to changing speed boots in some sense. Again, I'll go into some details later on, but you know, now we are pretty much going into a stage where perhaps Adidas is gonna go some route similar, or maybe not. Maybe they started their own situation with the Predators being more of a speed boot now. So what I'm trying to say is they probably understand that a lot of companies realize that people like speed boots, people like a more snug, tighter fitting boot, and it looks like Adidas also kind of reacted to that by making the Predators Hybrid Touch 2.0 is more of a thinner upper, and it doesn't really feel like it's trying to imitate leather. It's just like a synthetic material that it's thinner, and that's basically its purpose. But anyway, going back to the Mercurial Superfly 10, I really think that this colorway is pretty awesome. I'm not sure why we didn't see a lot of players coming out with the shoe in the beginning of the year, but here are some of the details. You know, I think some of the details is hard to see on TV. But when you see up close, especially in this kind of lighting with the sun, you see that there's a lot of, it's like a dual colorway, because some of the fibers or the strings in this Superfly that they use for the grip knit and the upper is not really white. It's more like a pearl coconut milk colorish, but it still looks pretty good, and I really like the direction that they're taking with this shoe. Honestly, it's just really like a shoe that has so many details, and especially in the shoelaces. You see how it sparkles a little bit, and overall pretty cool. I guess you would say that the way that the collar fits is changed a bit already from what the previous one did. They just pretty much go straight across without any kind of curves in it. But you know, either way, I think it's still pretty cool. Now, one of the things that I really think that is hard to get used to in the beginning is that now the Superflies are not just serving its purpose of being a light soccer or a light speed boot, but now it's also kind of giving you this grip knit, which is supposed to help improve or help make your curve balls or curlers or like top spin a lot easier, because the material really does a really brilliant job in getting that real grip once it makes contact with the ball that you didn't have before. And once you put the shoe on, it's pretty evident. And something that I feel personally is that you kind of get to do with the ball what you want to do when you are juggling it. So you kind of have real, or like a better control with the shoe on the ball when you're juggling than if it wasn't, because again, this grip knit really helps the ball kind of stick to your feet and then just kind of move the way that you want it. So any kind of little movement that you make with the feet, in terms of trying to get more curve on the ball, is kind of like the ball is gonna listen and do what you expect it to do. So it might take some time for you to get used to that. However, I think it's a pretty good thing compared to the previous Mercurials and other speed boots. They're pretty much basically you can actually control the ball a little bit better. It's not just gonna fly off contact from the ball, which, like I said, it's something that you need to get used to. It's a good thing. However, it's something that you need to train yourself to learn how to control the ball with these boots. And even when you hit the ball, it's not that same pingy sensation that you used to have with the other speed boots. Yeah, it's more of a kind of like, now I can actually try to curve the ball a little bit more. And if you had tried the GX in previous years, I think that is pretty much accurate to how the Mercurials feel. I have heard that the GX feels a little bit more grippy than the Mercurials. Still haven't tried that, so I couldn't say if it's true, but there are differences that I do notice from the GX compared to the Mercurials. The Mercurials do feel more like the GX first version, and the GX2 has more of like a coating on top. It is the way that it feels to me. Maybe it's not a coating, but the upper just feels like there is kind of like a coating in general that's applied to the top layer of the GX. So there are good and bad things about that, which I will get to in just a minute. But like I said, it's a different feel, I would say, from the GX to the Mercurials. The Mercurials do feel a little bit more snug, and like the GX of last year, they basically don't have a lot of toe box space. So when you put them on, it basically will feel like you are cramped in there, like there's really no room for your toes to move up and down. So it's just as tight fitting as it possibly could be, and it might be a good thing or a bad thing for you. That's another thing that you will just have to get used to, because there's nothing really wrong with that being that tight on your toes. However, you just gotta get used to that you cannot wiggle your feet the way that you're used to. But over time, you'll kind of forget about it, and so I don't think it's a big deal. But this boot, is just even more snug. So it's kind of going back, I would say, to what the Mercurials used to be, a more snug fitting speed boot. And when it comes to the sole play, I really think that Nike did an amazing job with the sole play, because it really feels like a more sculpted, more thought out design. As you can see, all the arcs and kind of the shapes that all the studs, once they transition into the sole play, they just make a really nice transition, nice shapes. It really feels like they really put a lot of effort into this sole play. It just looks really beautiful. And I mean, maybe it's not a great way to describe a boot, but honestly this looks so awesome that I think I can just take the sole play and put it on display in my house, and I just admired it. I really like how this kind of like, it looks like water, like Godzilla's coming out of the water. When the fin of the shark is coming out, it makes that little wave. It feels like that's going on in the bottom of the sole plate where the air unit is gonna go. And with this finish in orange, it just looks really sick. So honestly, I think they fixed one of the main problems that I had with the previous Superfly 9, that there was no support in the area with the air unit. So when you did aggressive stops and just going from one side to another, like, basically being more like trying to dribble through people and go left, right, blah, 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 like Salah. It really felt like the studs kind of sunk into the air unit, and now this kind of sole plate, the way that they made it a lot harder, but also like the shape that it takes in that, where the bigger part of that fish fin water looking thing, that the contact, when it makes contact with the floor, and especially in a soft ground, you don't feel like any pressure there. It really kind of feels like it's distributed more evenly, and it's thick enough that it doesn't feel like your sole plate is really sinking in or anything. And I don't know, I think it's just an amazing job what they actually fixed a lot of the things that I had kind of complaints about in the previous model. And again, now these chevron studs are amazing. It just makes the Mercurial look really like a really aggressive speed boot. And honestly, in this colorway, it's just kind of like my favorite thing to see in these boots. Then I mean, the color feels a little bit thicker, but I mean, not big difference. One of the things that I do feel improved a lot is the lockdown with the shoe, because like I said, it feels like with this grip knit, the insole, the inner lining of the shoe is more like a synthetic suede that feels like it melts into your foot. It really improved the lockdown, so when you're doing movements side to side, like soloms, drills, or just any movement on the pitch, it really feels like your connection to the shoe is very, very, very tight or snug, and that's a pretty pleasant experience, because that's kind of what you want to experience from the shoe. You want to feel like you're not really thinking about it, you're not feeling any movement, and so you can just put it on and forget that you have the shoes on and just be comfortable in them. And that's comfort is one of the big major points in the Superfly 10s or Vapors 15, but it's just so comfortable. Like I said, the upper just melts into your feet. The break-in time is very minimal. And then the improvements that they did in the sole with the air unit, I think is really massive, even though they say it's like about 30% or some, like a low amount of number of percentage that they say they improve with energy return. But honestly, I don't think it's so much of the energy return, because the foot is not going to make it faster, but so much more of like the bouncy sensation that you get with this boot. It's a real plus, because now this boot, like I said, you don't feel like the studs are sinking into your foot when you're doing aggressive movement, and that's a good thing, because like I said, you just feel confident. But another thing is that it actually provides extra comfort with the air unit being more like returning the energy back to you, because I guess in the way that translates to performance, not so much that it's gonna push you forward, but it's more like you're not gonna feel your body weight really sinking into the shoe and then sinking into the studs, and it just feels like you're walking in a sneaker, in a sense, like just a comfortable sneaker that's made to play soccer with, but it's actually a cleat. And surprisingly, when I'm walking in areas of the pitch that are harder with a drier dirt, it doesn't feel like the studs are really digging into my foot, where I can feel the sensation of the floor. So comfort wise, it's something that's pretty awesome. However, because of the air unit being under your foot, I do think that something that you need to keep in mind is that you're not gonna feel that connection to the floor. Unfortunately, if you do use any kind of brushes to clean your Mercurial Superfly 10, they will get damaged because of the fibers. Again, they're exposed, so basically all that abrasion with the brush is just gonna pull some of the yarns out of place, and it could damage your shoes. So please do not do that. Like I said, it doesn't have any kind of coating on it, so it's just gonna be straight contact, and it's something that if you're spending this kind of money on the shoes, you don't want to do. So I would say, if you want to wash them with some soap, scrub them a little bit with maybe a sponge, not something that's really going to be aggressive on the shoe. And in general, it's not something that you want to do with your shoes, clean them with something that's going to be very abrasive to it. But specifically with this, because of the yarn and the way that the structure is made, don't use anything that's going to be really rough on the surface of the boot. Now, as for cons, I would say the grip knit is kind of its con, because at the same time, like I said, it's really hard to clean the shoe. So they're just going to get dirty, but it's nothing that's going to pretty much make the performance worse. So it's just aesthetically, but however, it's not a big deal. So honestly, that's all I can say. It's as a con. Obviously, to the size, and if you have wider feet, this is not a shoe for you. You should just try it before you can buy it. But honestly, I can understand it because all the hype, you might want to try it. So let me know what you guys think. Please just leave a comment, like, subscribe. That really helps out the channel. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. This is Superfly.
Up in the stat while they watching the 10 in the game. Either the editor, just a critic, man, we ain't the same. I'm focused on making this history into my top 5. List is list of me. I never got an L on pass, this ain't no breeze. I had to make the workout last. The bill of steam is different degrees. I know I do this here with the ease. It never been easy. Slim, just keep one up the sleeve. I saw I knew they had the passion, so come to the breathe. But I keep forward here, the goal is near the sun. It's more for ears that